And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. We are back. I know we were just here on Wednesday, but we had so much more to cover that it is time to do part two of this week's MLS news, focused specifically around players who are confirmed or rumored to be coming to the league yet again. I love this time of year, right before the transfer market or transfer window opens, that we are getting all these little rumors that teams are, communicating with players and, discovery rights and everything to deal with it. I love this time. What about you, Connor? Do you enjoy it?
Of course, silly season is our favorite time of the year.
Yeah, I'm thinking we should probably start doing like mid-season uh reactions to things like that, like
Oh
our
God,
posts.
no,
Yeah,
absolutely not. No
I think we
chance.
should. Leave a
Not
comment below if
happening.
you think just Connor should be making those for you, because you know how great his feedback is.
I'm going to be the only comment because I will delete any other comments that get posted under the post.
I love it. Well, like we said, this week or this episode, we're covering players on their way to the league. That is Reus now to the LA Galaxy after talking about him being at St. Louis. Chucky Lozano to San Diego FC as their first big signing. And finally, the rumor that Timothy Ream, our USMNT starlet, may be joining Charlotte. See what I did there?
Starlet Charlotte.
Nice. Good pickup. Look how smart you are.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we do that, I do want to get into scarf of the week. What are you rocking? I
I've
need, because
gone
you said you got this stretch, man.
I've gone deep cut here because there was
Hold on. That's
two.
a Chicago one.
It is a Chicago Fire scarf.
Oh Lord.
It would have been too easy. There was too easy of a low-hanging fruit here. I actually could have gone for another deep cut choice here, but I'll stick with the my Chicago Fire scarf here. Right? Any guesses? Do
Did
you do
Tim
you know
Ream
who it's
play?
related to?
Did Tim Ream play for like a Chicago PDA team or something like that?
You nailed it right on the head. He played for, I think it was a PDL team.
PDL.
Yep.
I think I said PDA. I meant PDL.
He played for a PDL team called Chicago Fire Premier.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. Good stretch. Mine also a bit of a stretch, but a little bit of an easier one. We're in the new area. I've got the scarf up at the office, but broke out a nice New York Red Bull scarf here. Very plain, very easy. But I'm sure you can
Boo.
guess it because you're very smart.
Yeah, Tim Ream, obviously. That's the low-hanging fruit. You
Yeah.
could at least take out the St. Louis scarf. The guy played college in St. Louis, plus you had the Marco Royce link. It would have been way better.
Too easy.
But no,
I also could find it. I don't know
let me
where it
pick
is.
the Red Bull boy because Tim Ream played for Red Bull.
I don't know where any of my scarves are. I use them to pack up
All
half
right,
of my
that's
stuff.
fair. Fine, fine. I'll let it slide because that's
Yeah.
fair.
I'm telling you, half of my scarves are wrapped around like glass bottles and stuff because I had to make sure they didn't break.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I'll
Um,
allow it.
yeah, of course you will. But you know what I'm
I've got my USMNT shirt on,
Oh,
also fitting for
nice.
Tim Ream.
Nice. Mine's getting ready to be washed. I wore it on a run the other day.
Who did you get again? Do you have the Zimmerman one?
I have Weston McKinney.
Okay. Maybe Jason has the Zimmerman one. Can't
Yeah.
remember. Or no, I
Yeah.
think Matt has
Matt
it.
has Zimmerman and Jason has Tyler Adams. Or do you have Tyler Adams?
I got Geo.
Okay, so Jason's got Tyler Adams. That was a good one.
And
Matt pulled out a good stop there. He did well.
it would have been really good if he pulled out like three stars of the team and then just like
Um,
Giassi's artist.
I was like Aaron Johansson. Aaron Johansson scenes. Oh,
Yeah.
that'd be a good one. Like full size posters of like USMNT busts. That'd be
There's
real.
three busts and one good one in there, and we gotta
Yeah,
just randomly pick.
play white elephant to see who gets it. Um, all right, we got a couple of really good players to talk about today. Starting with the maybe the biggest of them all, depending on who you are and where you see this happening. And Marco Royce to the LA Galaxy. This is a saga we've talked about already. We thought it was done and dusted. It was reported that St. Louis were in conversation and that Charlotte had the discovery rights. but he didn't want to play for any of them. The Galaxy have swung in and led and have taken the lead as the front runners to his signature in MLS. He still has offers from abroad in Europe and Saudi Arabia, and talks are going on. They're serious, but nothing's confirmed yet. Interestingly, in a first of its kind move, to my understanding, LA paid. Usually when you pay for the discovery rights to a player, you only pay the money if they sign for you. LA paid this massive discovery rights fee, $350,000, which is up there in terms of any of the transfer fees for discovery rights possible, just to talk to him, just to have the rights to talk to him, which is crazy. Thoughts on the move, how he fits in LA, and how this whole thing is unraveled?
The LA Galaxy are absolutely determined to finish this season with like 85 goals scored and 75 goals conceded. Like I
4.0.
I applaud their
4.0.
commitment to the 4.0 model. Like this team does not care at all about conceding goals. They just want to score 15 a game. They don't care if they concede 13 to 20 a game. Uh, I mean, they have been, in my opinion, and I'm sure some people will disagree, but in my opinion, they have the most exciting attack to watch in the league this season, even though they don't have the most goals. I love watching Puig and Jovic and Paintsel and Peck just go out there and combine well and look explosive, and they've just been exciting. And I think adding Marco Reus to that will only make it more exciting. Um, and maybe even potentially another guy that I saw rumored with them that I'm not going to mention in case we talk about him later. But yeah, adding Royce is only going to make that attack even more exciting. But again, does it address the problem with the team, which is the defense, where again, their center back situation is like 35, 37. Actually, they're a little bit younger than I thought they were. I guess they got rid of some of the older guys, but still not a great center back situation or just a great defensive situation, period. So it will be interesting to see if they decide to do more business outside of Royce, which I would suspect they probably do. But can't complain. I mean, that's a very typical LA Galaxy signing. Get the big name in there, and hopefully it pans out for them. I think Royce is a little bit riskier considering his injury history, but if you get him on a non-DP deal, I think it's a good deal.
I mean, there are two ways to look at this, right? From the roster building, like the player itself, and then the roster rules and how he's going to fit in, right? So from a roster building perspective, very interesting on how he'll fit in, right? You mentioned that front line: Jovic, Peck, Paintsel, Puig, all these big names. Where does Royce fit into that? I'm not sure, right? I think he'd be a sub, or even like he would rotate in with Peck because everybody else been's on fire. But in terms of like improvement, you're definitely getting better with him. Like that's not a question. Maybe makes him a Western Conference favorite, maybe an MLS Cup favorite. I mean, you can argue that, but logistically, it'd be very, very difficult to see how he fits in a day by day basis, right? You've got all of those positions set, filled, whatever. Now you can change formation, go a little bit more, get a little bit more attacking talent in there, and maybe bump Puig up as to and this is just a theoretical, obviously never going to happen, but like bump Puig up to a number 9, a false 9 who falls off, and then put Royce in underneath him, put Royce as a 9 and have him fall off, put him out wide and put Paintsel up. So many different things you can do, but I'm not sure you want to do that right now. Why mess around with what's working? Now the other question is roster rules, man. The
Those are
Galaxy,
fake. They don't
they're
follow
not
roster
fake.
rules.
The
Galaxy don't follow them.
I think the roster rules are dependent on where you are in the country. Roster rules apply for teams like Columbus, but Miami and Galaxy, you're good, man. You do what you want, man. Vibe.
See, you get it.
They don't have an open DP spot. Nobody can be bought down, which means he either has to go and come on as a non-designated player, or one of them has to be sent out. And none of them are getting, I can guarantee you none. They just signed a whole bunch. None of them are getting sent out. So that makes me think, how are you going to get him here? Because you've got rumors from Saudi Arabia. You've got rumors from Europe. Saudi Arabia is going to throw big money at you if that's really what you're looking to do. But they're also talking about like, oh, you're going to make extra money with endorsements and advertisements, right? The messy way. Just obviously a much lower impact level, but is that enough to sway him away from the money that Saudi Arabia is going to throw at him? I have no idea. LA is a nicer place to live. I'm sure he loves that lifestyle. But my question to you, is it wrong to have these roster rules set in place when you can just go around them if you're a bigger team with like sponsorship and advertisement opportunities that teams like Colorado or Charlotte can't?
I mean, that's the inevitability in every sport. I mean, a lot of the other American sports have salary caps as well, but the reality is just like the bigger markets are going to attract the bigger players. I mean, just look at even if you look at it from like an NBA perspective, like LeBron when he left Cleveland, like I understand that he went back to Cleveland because he wanted to win them a championship. It's where he started. It's where he's from Ohio. I get that. But then as soon as he did that, where did he go? Right to LA. So there's always going to be more attraction to the bigger markets, whether we have the salary cap or not. So I think, obviously that's a fair question to ask because you could just bring in Royce on a cheaper salary that fits the roster rules and then just be like, well, we'll make up for it by landing you a bunch of sponsorship deals that'll easily make up the salary reduction that you're taking and then some. Um, so yeah, I mean, if you're an RSL fan, you're looking at that and you're being like, well, that's unfair. We're building the roster by making smart signings and not necessarily finding shortcuts to get around roster rules. But I just think it's an inevitability no matter what rules they're going to put in place. The larger markets are going to find ways to get benefits out of being the larger markets. So it's kind of a tough pill to swallow. I don't have like a way around that. Like I think Galaxy have always had that advantage in their transfers, and I feel like they will continue to have it moving forward.
Yeah, listen, I think it's a little shady, no doubt. But as you mentioned, it's the way that bigger teams can get around the rules, right? You can't really work that into a budget, right, or a roster rule like restriction because the team isn't paying them; other companies are. And if those companies are in LA, Miami, New York, then it gives them that advantage. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like you mentioned, those overseas stars are going to pick Los Angeles, Miami, New York over Charlotte, St. Louis, Colorado. And that's because they know what they're getting there, right? When you live overseas, you know what LA is about. It's the LA stars, the LA beaches, the New York City lifestyle, the Miami beaches, right? That's stuff you know about no matter where you are, right? Colorado, St. Louis, they don't really have that glam. And again, not saying that they're bad locations or bad teams. It's just again, it's the overseas big star. What does that look like? Um, but that's why I think the discovery rule list is important. So that teams like Charlotte and St. Louis can at least get compensated for being a smaller market and then put that back into mid-level guys or even the designated players of lower stature, right? Like that is people are always like, oh, these discovery rules are so stupid. They make it an unserious league, blah, 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 blah. Like, if we don't, then we end up just being another league where the teams that aren't in good areas just have no chance. So
I still hate that rule. I hate the discovery rights thing. It's
why?
such because it's just such a like optically it's such a dumb rule
I
to
don't care
like
about
put
the
in place.
optics anymore.
It's literally the finders keepers rule. Like Charlotte didn't discover Marco Royce. They
It's
weren't even
the
around when he was
so
making
so
a name
here's
for
here's the
himself.
deal, and this is why I needed to bring this up. You needed to understand that this isn't a discovery list, right? I didn't find Lionel Messi. It's the way they described it online was great. It's a dibs list saying if we had access to all of these players, I got this guy first, this guy first, this guy first, this guy first. For the
Which is
exact reason.
stupid.
Why is that stupid?
Why do you just get to call dibs on every? I'll just call dibs on everybody, and then
You
that's
can.
it.
That's why
Everybody
it's
has to
a
pay
that's why it's
me.
a set list and they get it smaller every year. We're getting away from it, but it makes
Dude,
sense for where we started and where we still currently are. We're still growing teams, right? We're not set in the number of teams that we have, which means that more and more players are going to be tempted to come over by other teams. And then they're all going to say, nope, I just want to go to LA, Miami, New York. So then what do? We just end up giving all the superstars to three teams and then everybody else just like, good luck.
I guess they'll just have to be more creative about the guys that they bring in. It's not that they can't bring in talented players. They just may have to bring in more under the radar players or build through their academies like Dallas, even though Dallas is arguably a big city too. But
They're all big
uh,
cities. They have to be legal.
do you have to? Yeah, I guess so. Do you have to have a reason to call dibs on somebody? Because I just think the dibs thing just whether or not you think it's a good rule, I feel like optically it's always going to put people off. Like it just seems like a childish rule. It's like a rule you come up with on the playground when you're like 10. Like, oh, I called dibs on Johnny being on my team, so now you got to pay me in apples, or you got to give me your chocolate milk at lunch if you want Johnny on your team. It sounds stupid.
So I don't disagree like with your premise, but what I'm saying is where we started from and where we've gotten to, like we're almost at a point, I believe, where we don't need it anymore. But from where we were starting up brand new, you needed it. Now, again, are we a little bit far like down the line? Are we too far down the line? That's a conversation I'll have. Maybe, maybe not. I don't think so. I think we're almost there, but I don't think we're completely away from needing it for this exact reason, right? You just had the opportunity to bring Marco Reus, one of the best players in the Bundesliga, really well known in America, to the league, and he was about to walk away. He was about to walk away from the league, from being in the league, because he didn't want to play for the two teams that were there, right? Like, so now you're looking at this idea that's like, okay, I get it, and this is where I understand it. Like, you're like, oh well, we can't have it because if nobody wants to pay him, then he goes away, right? But they wouldn't have had a chance to even get compensated for in the first place. So now what? Do they just they're not allowed to go after those players now, and they have to build with lesser players?
You're
Or do they get
saying
caught, or do they get a at least a shot at it, right? Because again, the league is about parity. We know this. They try their best to keep it on a level playing field. And if this rule didn't exist, that doesn't happen.
I just don't think Charlotte should be compensated because Royce doesn't want to play for them. I just think okay, Royce doesn't want to play for you, so what? Move on, find the next player. It doesn't mean that you can't bring in good players. You spent multi millions to bring in Enzo Capetti, who didn't work out, but it wasn't like you didn't have the money to spend on a guy on that guy. I mean, we're talking about like a 35-year-old Marco Reus. You're not missing out on Leo Messi coming to your team. Like Leo Messi is only going to want to play for a certain number of cities. That doesn't mean that like Colorado should have dibs on Messi. And now Miami has to pay like 1.5 million GAM because Colorado thinks they have a shot at getting Messi.
Well, here's the thing: when they talked about the roster rules being changed and the idea that like super teams were on the table, if that was the path that they go, the first thing they do is they get rid of this rule, right? Because then it's just saying, okay, everybody's a free for all. Go try and sign whoever the hell you want, right?
Well,
And there's
you still have to be within the salary cap. You can't just sign whoever you want. But why the hell? Why do you need dibs? Why do you need this like dibs rule? If
it's a
Marco
parody. It's a parody thing. And
if
again, I'm
if
not
an
like
aging sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying I'm not sitting here saying like every league should have a dibs rule, like that everybody should follow MLS. I think we should be getting away from it, which I think we are. We're lessening the number of players that we can put on there. We're allowing it to be more open. We have more teams involved. It's moving in the right direction, but I'm not saying just scrap it all now because we had one player who brought it all into light, and now everybody online is like, oh, these are stupid.
I mean, people every time it gets brought up, people talk about how it's stupid because it is. To me, it's a stupid rule. I don't understand. Like, sure, it made sense 15 years ago when the league was just starting out, but it's 15 years later, and the league is so far different from where it started out. There's no reason to have the dibs rule anymore. Every team has multi like billion-dollar owners. Like, there's no reason to we should have like a dibs rule anymore, so that you can like bring in some aging USMNT star who's willing to play for any team in the league, or might only be willing to play for like LA or something. I can't think of like the right example, but you
Of
know what I
course not,
mean.
because
We're not
you don't
trying to.
even know what you're talking about, which means
I
I'm
do know
right.
what I'm talking
By the
about.
rules of Twitter, because you stumbled once, I'm
Oh
right.
my god.
No, and listen, you make a really good point. You can convince me away from this. Like, I'm not gonna die on this hill. Like, I don't really care about it because it's not that big of a deal. But I'm just playing devil's advocate for content and fun. But you know, end of the day, like I don't have a problem with it. Like if it went away or it stayed, I don't care. It doesn't really play that big of a deal into decision making like this. I don't really care. But that being said, like I understand why it's there. The rate at which it goes away, because eventually it will go away. The rate at which it goes away will determine my like how much I care about it. Like if it's still around here in a decade, okay, now we've got a problem, right?
I honestly, I think I'd be less against it if it were like 10,000 or whatever to get the rights, but
Sure, like it
three,
costs really
like
nothing.
Charlotte got 350,000 in GAM for literally doing nothing. For saying we potentially want to get Royce. I think that's crazy. Like that's like three times what Red Bull got for Drew Yearwood.
Bro,
That's an
why is
insane
Drew
amount of money.
Yearwood always why is it always Drew Yearwood litmus test with you?
Because it's insane how little they got for Drew Yearwood.
Oh no, I turned my there we go. Again, I realistically, end of the day, don't really care. I don't think it's that deep. Now that I think that's a great way to go about it. If you want to put a cap on how much those rights cost, and I think I have it in there? No, I didn't. But one of the things I was thinking of, let's go ahead and have like a tier ranking system, right? Like if you have X number of international appearances or World Cup appearance, like you know how the European group has like you need to have if you're from this nation, you need to have this many appearances to get a visa or whatever. You can do the same thing here, right? Like if you have a discovery list player like Lionel Messi and somebody wants to buy it from you, okay, that's a million in GAM or whatever, whatever it may be. But if you have somebody like, I don't know, Thiago Almada before he was really like discovered, then that's a lower hit. Again, I don't know how that would work out, but I wouldn't be against something like that. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Is this your resume for getting on the MLS rules committee?
Oh,
Like
listen,
because
I
you're fantastic at making rules even more confusing than they need to be.
bro, they don't even need to be. They're
Why
not even that confusing. Explain to me the
you're adding
mid-level.
a tier
Explain to me the
system to
mid-level
the
exception in the
discovery
bird
rights
years
rule?
in NBA contracts, and then talk to me about confusing MLS rules. Thank you
You're
for
adding
coming to my TED talk.
you're adding tiers to the discovery rights rule. Like I think the idea of a cap on how much you can get from discovery rights rule
So
is a
whoa,
good
you're
it's a
telling
good
me like
idea.
Georgios Giacomakis and Lionel Messi would cost the same amount if you wanted to do that?
Yeah,
Absolutely not.
for a dibs thing, yeah, absolutely.
You're out of your mind.
That's because
Again,
you're gonna tell me a Colorado should have rights to be like, yeah, we got dibs on Messi. Like Messi's totally coming to come play in Colorado.
no, but that's the whole
No,
point. It keeps it competitive so that at least they can say, okay, now you have to pay me for it, and I can put that back into my roster.
no, I don't think so.
All right.
I don't think they
Well,
should get
listen.
compensated because Leo Messi doesn't want to go play in Colorado.
Again, I don't like again. I know I played the other side of this. I really don't actually care. Like if it goes away, if it
I
stays,
know it's the
whatever.
discovery rule. Who
But
cares? Like,
yeah, but I can see both sides of it. I do think it probably should go away sooner rather than later. But this whole Royce thing isn't making me like throw my hands in the air.
yeah, but it's good for content.
It's great for content. I'm gonna look like I'm a bad guy. I need to be the bad guy here. Great.
The villain,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, you're usually the villain here, so I got to take over. Um, so yeah, we went a little bit deeper on the like way he
Oh yeah,
got.
way deeper than it needed to be. Not
Yeah.
even
So
talking about the transfer anymore. We
yeah.
just started talking about discovery right
Well,
rule.
well, it's a rumor, right? So we don't know if it's gonna happen or not. But one thing we do know that is confirmed is that San Diego FC has made their first designated player signing
Let's
in.
go, San Diego.
Yeah, there you go. Now you're back to being the villain. Um, Mexican superstar Chucky Lozano has been confirmed as the club's first ever designated player signing, similar to another Californian expansion team's first ever DP signing, funny enough, in LAFC's Carlos Vela. He was signed for 12 million euros, similar to the new Chicago Fire signing Hugo Kuipers, making him the fourth most expensive transfer in to the league per transfer market. Reactions, thoughts.
I absolutely love this signing. They
Get him
knocked
anti
it.
MLS, guys. He's supporting the team that killed the loyal.
That's not what I'm doing. Don't word it like that. I don't like that. Um, no, they absolutely knocked it out of the park with the signing. I mean, this is super ambitious. It's perfect for the team and the type of like fan base that they're probably going to have. You literally, I don't think they could have had a better first signing here. I mean, Lozano's years off of his best production in his career. His best production was in those early days with PSV. He was unbelievable. Back to back 25 goal contribution seasons for PSV is fantastic. Then he got that move to Napoli and it did not pan out. He just could not find that same level of form. But I would still say by no means was he completely like a disaster there. He still had 14 goal contributions in a season and then 10 the year after that. So I still think there's plenty of potential there for him. And what an opportunity to bring him into a team that is like on the border of the US and Mexico. He's the Mexico star boy. He is like Mexico's Christian Pulisic. That is such a great signing for them.
Wow,
Even if
what a
he's not going to
disrespect to Christian Pulisic. Sorry, I need to cut
I'm
you off.
sorry. Yeah,
That's
you're right.
ridiculous.
That is
He's like
disrespectful.
he's like the he's like the
Okay, but like
Mexican national
Mexico's
team's Alex Mouille. Let's slow down here.
I'm just saying like from a fan's like popularity perspective. Like I think they see him in a similar light. I'm not saying he is the same quality of Pulisic. That's not a discussion. But uh I think this is a phenomenal signing. I think it's going to get fans in the door. It's going to get fans super excited about the team. It does remind me of the Carlos Vela signing. I'm not sure if he's going to quite hit Carlos Vela's level, especially during that one MVP year where it was arguably the best single season in MLS history. But I still think this is phenomenal signing for them. What a way to kick things off for them.
I really need to control myself more. I got to stop cutting you off. That makes editing harder for me when I need to make clips. Um, but listen, when you compare the best Mexican winger to not the best American winger, it kills me. You know, it kills me.
Who's the? Are you saying Alex Mul is the
Alex
best?
Mouille, how dare we disrespect the GOAT?
Is he even a winger anymore?
Listen, that's all relative. It's all relative. So we spoke about this before. I agree with you. This is a great move. Strong Mexican fan base. People will be able to attract him much easier with the presence of one of their best national team players. And again, I know that's not saying much considering the state of the national team at the moment, but not only is he a big face to sell the fans, he can still also contribute. As you're just dropping some stats here. He played over 1,500, just a little bit over 1,500 minutes, 9 goal contributions, got the first Eredivisie championship for PSV since 2017-18 season. I know they don't have a head coach yet at San Diego, but this is a good building block to start assembling a team. Now, how they predict or how they build around him will be key to their first year success. Very, very important that they build it correctly. So what do you think his predicted impact will be in San Diego?
I think he's going to be really good for them, honestly. I feel like this team is ambitious, and I know it's early days, but I get the feeling that this team is going to be ambitious in building out their team. They're not going to be afraid to throw around money and build this team properly. And so I think he's going to have really good support around him. And with that in mind, and the support he'll have from the fan base, I think he's due for a big season when he comes in. I'm not saying he's going to be MVP level, but I would not be surprised to see him hitting like 15 goal contributions at least in his first season there, and then only going upward from there. I mean, he's coming in his prime. I mean, he's coming in at like, I mean, does San Diego start next season or is it 25?
Yep.
Yeah. So he's gonna come in at like 29 years old. Like he's gonna be right in the prime of his career. I think he's due for a big year. I think he's gonna look good.
Yeah, so I asked this because I had a conversation on Twitter with somebody who thinks he's just coming over here
That's a
because
terrible way to start things. I had a conversation with somebody on Twitter.
well, this one wasn't terrible. I have some
Okay.
things. I have some things to show you after this, though.
Oh God.
The guy on Twitter, and he was respectful about it. We had a good chat about it where he said he's only coming over here because he thinks he doesn't need to prove anything else, and he's going to be able to just ride off into the sunset, get his bag, and move on. And with that, I completely disagree. Right. As the first star signing on a new team in an area that already has seen a Mexican star light up the league in his first few years, I think that there is a really big expectation for him not just to perform, but to be a top 10 player from day one. Because the comparisons are already going to be there from the start. Oh, wow, Carlos Vela had X goals in X game to start his MLS career. And either Lozano's behind that, oh, he's not doing the job. Or if he does better, now, San Diego FC is taking shots at LAFC. Oh, look, ours is better, blah, 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 blah. You get a rivalry increase, bang, here you go. Right? But at the end of the day, I don't think that they're just going to let him show up, walk around the pitch, and not give any effort. This isn't Andrea Pirlo to New York City, right? He's there to be the face of a team. He's there to be their star player. And if he doesn't act like it, I think they try and even just move him out, right? Charlotte-esque. You want to be here, but you're not going to perform? See ya. Bye.
I feel like you would be lying to say that people wouldn't have said the exact same thing when Vela joined.
Oh,
He's
absolutely.
just coming here to collect the paycheck. He just wants to ride off and collect easy money, score a couple penalties and whatever. And how wrong did he prove all those people? I would not be
Relative.
surprised to see Lozano doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, it was all right.
Vela, he's all right. Just all right.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, so like I said, it'd be very interesting to see how they build around him. I think that's the one we need to watch most, not necessarily him, because you can only do so much as one player versus 11, right? Unless you're Sebastian Giovinco 2017 or Lionel Messi, because that is something else. But if we're talking about really, really good players who are soon to be no longer really good players simply because they've moved across an ocean, Tim Ream in a blindsided news stories is in serious advanced talk with Charlotte FC per Tom Bogert and The Athletic. He has been a Fulham stalwart at 36 years old, but has recently fallen out of favor due to injury and other reasons, maybe because he's 36. But he has incited a move to the American Major League Soccer League, the MLS League, if you will. USMNT stand accounts have been calling for him to be the starting center back at Copa America and the World Cup next year. And they've gone really, really quiet since this news has broken. I wonder why. Let's talk about it. Give me some thoughts. What do you think?
Get this man out of my national team right now. Are you telling me that
Unbelievable.
I have to associate the Tim Ream name getting dirtied by having to play in an American city? Absolutely not. Get him out of the national team. Swap him right now. Send him to the Olympics and give me like some kid from the PSV U18s in the national team to replace him. No, get me John Brooks in the national team now. Stat to replace him.
Have you heard that Austin Trusty is available by chance?
I only want center backs who concede 100 goals in a season. Yeah, I would be remiss to say anything bad about Tim Ream coming into this team. It's incredible leadership to have in the back line. And even at his age, I mean, we saw Chiellini come over at an older age and do very, very well here. After seeing that, it's hard for me to fully doubt any of these moves anymore, where like the older center backs come in. Because I could see Tim Ream doing the exact same thing. I mean, he has experience in the league before. Yes, the league has changed a lot since he's been here last time, so there will probably be some kind of a learning curve to that. But I still think that experience will help him, come back over after having been gone for so long. I don't know if you wanted me to also talk about him with the USMNT, or if that's a question down the line, or if you
That'll be
just wanted
that'll
me
be
to
down
focus.
the line. That'll be down the
Okay,
line. Yeah. So
I'll end it there then.
yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm interested in this move, right? Charlotte, one of the best defensive teams in the league, coupled with one of the worst attacks in the league. A big open budget, DP spots, the U22s, and they're going for a 36-year-old center back.
Yeah.
Not saying Tim's done, not saying he's washed or anything, but based on the roster build and the team needs, I'm wondering maybe why. Dean Smith has a focus right now on his system of defense first, worry about the attack later, right? I watched them play against Red Bull, and they really had nothing except counterattacking options going forward, which is fine when you guys got like Patrick Agyemang and Leo Abada up top, but it won't be enough to make them a true cup or shield contender. They don't have that bite about them, right? And they're not really in a win now position where like that experienced 36-year-old center back is the answer, right? It's not like LAFC getting Chiellini and it's like, oh, this is going to take us to the next level because that's the last piece we need. It just doesn't quite come together for me. At first I was excited. I'm like, okay, good. Tim Ream, great defensive team. They're going to be solid, right? But the more I look into it, the more questions I have. Just kind of why now?
I think they're not far off from being win now. I do agree with you that the attack probably should be the focus point, considering you only scored 18 goals so far this season in 17 games. Not exactly your best return there. And your 18 goals allowed is very, very good. So I wouldn't, me personally, I probably wouldn't want to shake up the defense potentially. But I look at the midfield, and the midfield's pretty aging. I mean, you've got Junior Urso. Not even going to try to pronounce his last name, but Brecht, the Belgian that came in this season.
Desjardins.
Is that how you say it? Desjardins? Oh, that's way easier to say than it's spelled.
Uronen. Jerry
Um,
Uronen.
who?
Jerry Uronen.
Anyway.
Left back.
Oh, I
That's right.
wasn't
You don't
talking
know
about
you don't
him.
know ball like I know ball. I get it.
I don't watch Charlotte. I will be honest with you. Um, Scott Arfield, Ashley Westwood, Kalina. I mean, Kalina's not old, but he's 31. So there's plenty of guys in this team who are influential and are kind of in win now situations. I would say the attack's really the only situation where they're not win now. They have a pretty young attack, but the attack is the part that needs a lot of work. So if you're going to bring in Tim Ream, who's a win now defender, maybe you go for a win now striker. Maybe that's their sign. Maybe they're committing to winning now.
Warm up before you did this? Because that was a real big stretch you just did there.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Uh,
all about the stretch.
yeah. Like I said, I think there were much more pressing issues to address, if I'm being straightforward, right? Like they could have gone and done other things. Now, is it a bad signing? Don't think so. Is it a preparation for maybe Malanda being moved on, even though they've made it very clear he's not for sale? Maybe. They're just pieces that I think haven't moved yet that need to move for me to get this. Basically, that's kind of where I'm at.
I mean, they could use an extra center back, so I don't necessarily think it's too bad. I mean, you got Tuoloma, Malanda, João Pedro, and then a couple of younger guys who I think
Well,
haven't really.
Privet's still playing. He's playing pretty much every minute for them.
All right, so then what? You got four. So then I guess yeah, maybe then if Ream's coming in, someone's going out.
Yeah, I mean, are you going to use 36-year-old Tim Ream as left back cover? Probably not,
Oh, I hope not.
right? And even then, you don't need him. You've got Hamdi Diop, your first overall pick last year. So yeah, it just like I said, I think there are pieces that need to move before this actually makes sense. Like this is something there are a lot of moving pieces on the board in the room that where it happens. Hamilton reference, and that needs to all play out for this to make sense to me.
I'm glad they
But
need to make moves for it to make sense for you. They should think about that ahead of time. Got to make moves to make sense for Andrew.
well, listen, I mean, as much as everybody should be doing work to please me, it doesn't always happen that way, and that's okay. I'm okay with that, right? You just gotta live and learn and roll with the punches.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask the final question then. If he ends up in MLS, clearly that means he should be removed from the men's national team altogether. And anyone who even thinks about mentioning his name should be banned for eternity as an MLS show, right? Is that kind of where I'm getting at?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think you nailed it right on the head.
Yeah.
I mean, keep him as far away from my national team as possible if he is coming to MLS.
Yeah. No,
We have
if I'm being like straight up, like I'm so excited to watch the pivot from the USMNT stand accounts who were like literally weeks ago talking about, oh, I don't care that he's 36. He's still in Europe and is better than Miles Robinson. He should be starting at the Copa America. To Tim Ream has no ability whatsoever. He plays in MLS and Greg has an MLS bias. Like pivot on a dime. I can't wait to see it. I think we talked about this leading up to the Columbia game where we're like, oh, there are no MLS players. Who's going to be the fall guy? Tim Reams made like 2, 3. He wasn't great, and everybody's like, oh, Tim Ream washed, like done, can't do it. It's like, I wonder what changed there.
they heard the rumors. That's why. I wouldn't be surprised if Tim Ream's time with the national team is kind of dwindling. Like I'd be a bit surprised if we go with 38-year-old Tim Ream in 2026. So it wouldn't be terribly surprising to see this kind of as Tim's like last hurrah, in which case it's going to kind of coincide with his move to MLS. I don't necessarily think if that happens that he's getting booted because he's in MLS. I would think he's moved on because he's 36 and not in the same not at the same level that he once was at Fulham.
Somebody put it really funny on Twitter. They're like, yeah, the torch for players who should be starting over Miles Robinson just because they're in Europe has been passed from Tim Ream to Cameron Carter Vickers.
Oh, Cameron
Yeah,
Carter Vickers.
he was the
That's a good
worst
one.
player on the pitch against Colombia. By the way, we should do another episode on that next week after uh,
Oh, man.
the Brazil game because yeah, unbelievable.
Let's just put
Um,
out a bunch of clips of us praising Greg. That'll get a ton of engagement.
yeah, that's the engagement I need. I already got bad engagement from that. I'll show you that later. Um, here's the interesting part, right? Leading up to Copa America, he would have played 0 total games if he stayed at Fulham. So you're basically going to lead up and say, if you look at him and you said Tim Ream playing at Fulham makes him an instant lock for Copa America, and then in the same time period that he, if this move goes through, because it's still rumored, um, if he moves over the next couple of weeks, and you say, oh, he can't go, you are basically coming out and saying you think that playing in MLS is worse than not playing at all. And I know there are enough people out there that are actually thinking that, which is kind of terrifying. But I have a feeling that Ream isn't going anywhere from this men's national team, at least for the Copa. I think I would agree with you. The World Cup is maybe a stretch for him. It'll all depend on who the next crop of defenders coming up is. Again, Austin Trusty's not out of the picture. Walker Zimmerman's still, in the picture, which, you can argue he should be there or not. He's been hurt for a while. Um, Aaron Long still in the picture.
Oh, God.
I need to get that out of you. But no, and there's the crop of the younger guys too, right? The Jalen Neals who could when he comes back get healthy and play well, and that sort of crew. So you never know, right? And that's the fun of the national team is you just don't know who's going to be in that group, and it's a tough decision to make. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on to your point about coming over and getting the little game time from MLS before the tournament, it's the same thing Gareth Bale did. Came over to LAFC right before the World Cup.
Oh man, you really want people to hate you, don't you? I'll clip that. I'll clip that. Um, yeah, it's not a bad thing. So we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I think he knows that he needs game time if he wants to be a part of this and be, I think he knows, especially at 36, 37, that being a bench warmer in Europe doesn't cut it anymore, which is good. Um, and if he's performing at a high level in MLS, good. If he's not, then he doesn't go, right? Matt Miazga isn't a part of it. Just picking a name because he's okay, not great. I'll say good, not okay. I think he's good, even though I don't want to.
In his time at Cincy, you mean the guy that was like
Defender of the year last year, yeah,
yeah,
he's all right.
I guess he's all right.
He's all right. But he's not he's on the picture right now because when he was with the national team and then the start of the season, he hasn't been as good as he should be, right? And that's where this whole like, oh, MLS, MLS bias, it's not a thing, right? Like our 4 MLS players didn't touch the field and we got wiped. We'll save that for another episode because I can go down that tangent in a while.
Mhm.
That's all I got. You got anything else you want to add? Any other players I didn't see on their way over?
Um, Nothing else to add except let's get Lucia Costa on this team.
Oh,
You clip
on the
that,
Red
put
Bulls,
that
I'm,
one
I'm
out there.
for it. Um, yeah, I'd love to get him in there. We need some creative juices like
That'd be
yesterday.
fun. That'd be fun. I don't think he walks into the starting lineup, but I think this guy's got to be at least be on the bench.
Well, no, he can't get on the bench until he's third division Uzbekistan.
He had PSG links. I think that
Yeah, the
carries
links
over,
are
so
enough.
he's
The
okay.
links are enough.
Yeah, so I think he's all right. When people will Google him, the PSG stuff might come up, so he should be all right.
I love it. I'm just looking here for any rumors, anything crazy. Nope. That's about all I got rumor wise. I mean, the Angel Di Maria one, but that's not happening. So, um, Yeah, that's all we got here. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you go ahead and follow us on anywhere you get podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, where all the cool kids are. So you know when our next episode goes live, which is probably going to be a men's national team recap, which would be fun. And then make sure you are following for our clips on social media. That's TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. We love posting those and interacting with you guys there. So, yeah, definitely do that. And we will see you on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.